Good morning again. A few weeks ago, as I lay in a hospital bed in the wee hours of the morning, recovering from an emergency appendectomy, I started to think about what I was going to say today. Previously, I had tried to rewrite a reflection I gave a number of years ago entitled Living with Cancer, but I couldn't condense it to fit the time limit I was given. I remembered a number of other events that have challenged our family. Each time it has been a growing experience and something good has come out of each of them. So let's talk about lemons and making lemonade when it occurs. I'm not sure what lemonade is going to come out of my appendectomy, but feel sure eventually something will. Our family had lived a wonderful life with only small bad things happening. In the spring of 1984, in the middle of the night, we woke up to find our house on fire. Howard, I, and Tippy, our dog, escaped. We did not have smoke alarms, and it was before 911. It took 6 months to restore the house, and we luckily had replacement insurance, and our claim was for almost the full amount. When it was ready to move back into, it was far nicer than it previously had been, and our UU congregation, First Jefferson at that time, helped us inventory what was left, and were there for us with all kinds of help. One of the things I did during that 6 months of living in a very small apartment while the house was being rebuilt was to put together a cookbook for my children. My daughter Debbie started finding my favorite ones, and the cookbook is called After the Fire. And it was the tool I used to teach cooking for a number of years at the Southwest UU Summer Institute. I was able to share my love of cooking with so many people, and I've used some of the recipes recently to teach some of our Westside children. Shortly after the fire, we were approached by the Girl Scouts and the League of Women Voters to assist them in getting 911 on the ballot, and we helped in its passage. And my husband, Howard, was asked to be on the 911 board, and within a year or so, after it was established, he became the chairman of the board, where he served for quite a few years. Now, on to the next event. In the year 2000, in a routine mammogram, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had a lumpectomy, followed by 35 radiation treatments. And during that time, a number of my fellow cancer travelers died, and I personally knew one of them. She was a John Peter Smith nurse who was having both radiation and chemo and had an adverse reaction to the chemo. And another one was Gary Manning, who was president of the Fort Worth Independent School District. His treatments were scheduled just prior to mine, and it was disheartening to see both of them go, but somehow I had faith that I would survive. I would go for the treatment and then go to John Peter Smith Hospital and volunteer for a few hours and then go home in class. And this congregation helped me so much with its words of encouragement. It was a rude awakening 1 year later when I went for my annual mammogram to find that the dimple on the other breast that I had showed the doctors the year before was also cancer, and that this time I was going to need a mastectomy. I had it the week of 9/11. Prior to the cancer hitting me, I had the best volunteer job at John Peter Smith, our county hospital for the medically indigent. I assisted young women, many of them all by themselves have their babies, and I estimate I probably saw between 250 and 300 babies into the world during that time. And after the surgery, I could no longer sit on a rolling stool by a bedside for 8, 12, 24, as many as 36 hours at a time. My friend Dan Baker, head chaplain at John Peter Smith, asked me to do a survey with patients for the American Cancer Society. One of the questions on it was, are you ready to die? And amazing how many of the patients who admittedly are fairly fundamental in their religious beliefs said, yes, if it's my time, I'll be in a better place. And I said, hell no. I want to live because I am in a beautiful place. Dan asked me after that if I would be willing to be a lay chaplain in the hospital, working with cancer patients. Dr. Crow, who was the oncologist at that time, called those of us who visit with the cancer patients her hope team. And I can visit a patient and say, I am a fellow cancer traveler and have been living now for over 11 years since my first diagnosis. I have also served as a Reach for Recovery volunteer visiting newly diagnosed breast cancer patients. Life has its ups and downs, and in more recent years, Howard has fought colon cancer, and it was not easy as he had major complications. Instead of one surgery, he had 3. It took a major toll on him. And this congregation was there for him and continues to be so supportive as he struggles sometimes with his memory. The worst lemon came when our daughter Brenda suffered her stroke 6 years ago. When one sees their child not able to walk or talk or use her arm, and you see her life fall apart, you have to be strong for her. Obviously, I have passed on some of my strength to her, and she continues to amaze me with what she can do. Thanks to so many of you volunteering, working with her to help her regain her speech, she has blossomed. And it was in amazement that I watched her cross-stitch a baby quilt for her first grandbaby. She uses only her left hand, and she had been right-handed and still does not have use of it. Every stitch was perfect. She's also become a much more compassionate person. But the most difficult lemon that I faced came in about 1992. I feel a little freer to talk about it as enough years have gone by and the people involved are no longer in the area. I had been on the church staff at First Jefferson Church for about 8 years, a member there for over 20 years. One morning, the minister, who had been there 1 year, and the president of the church asked me and my co-worker Alice to step into the library. There we were told our jobs had been abolished. It came as a total surprise to us and also to the congregation. The interim minister, the Reverend Scotty Meek, had praised both Alice and myself in his parting words to the Lord. There was no good explanation for this action. I think I came fairly close to having a mental breakdown that spring. It was so painful to be devalued in such a manner. Howard and I withdrew, attending church, changed our pledge to go from operating to First Jefferson's endowment fund. I decided to start volunteering at John Peter Smith. That has turned out to be one of the best decisions, and I am so proud of the many lives I've been able to touch there. I've been active in the hospital auxiliary, and in recent years, I've helped raise over $1 million for the building of their latest addition, the Pavilion, which has an emergency room, operating rooms, intensive care rooms. And our gift to the hospital this year has been to help pay the salaries of 2 emergency room residents, which is a brand new program for the hospital. But the best lemonade came from our leaving First Jefferson. We were the pioneers that helped start Westside. Jerry Rossing and I went to Boston in 1994, the week before Christmas, which is not a good week to go. We went to learn how to start a church. We had big dreams, and though it took a few more years than we anticipated, look at what Westside is doing now. I thank all of you for being there for me, for Howard, for Brenda. This wonderful religion has given so much to me and has taught me so much. And as the song in our hymnal entitled, "We Laugh, We Cry" goes, we believe in life and in the strength of love and found a need to be together. So let's continue making lemonade together.
Before I embark on my own story of when life gave me lemons, I feel compelled to say that my case is substantially different from Myrtle and Bob, since I wasn't exactly given lemons. I made a conscious choice to obtain these so-called lemons. 10 years ago, 3 significant life-changing events occurred. The first is my mother passed away. The second is I married Greg, and thereby became a stepmother of 5 teenagers. And the third is later that year I became a member of this church. And the third event was precipitated by the first 2, if you can imagine. I was 29 at the time, and I never had any children of my own. In fact, I had given very little thought, even at that age, of having children, and suddenly found myself a stepmother of 5. And as we started our life together, Greg and I found out very quickly that being a stepmother was going to be difficult in ways I'd never had to deal with before. From the loss of my mother to becoming a stepmother, I went from losing someone who loved me unconditionally to teenagers who at times openly despised me. Is it any wonder that I sought a church home where I could come to feel acceptance and love, not to mention rationality? At first, I dealt with the problems of being a stepmother as I generally do. That is, I turned to books for answers. And I have to say that this quest for answers left me feeling disappointed, to say the least. Of the several books I read on step-parenting and blended families, none offered any real concrete advice. In fact, what I found were dismal facts, such as the fact that 2 out of every 3 marriages of blended families, which are where the couple brings children from other relationships, it ends in divorce. The other discouraging piece of information I gleaned is that it takes anywhere from 4 to 7 years for a blended family to normalize. To be honest, I didn't know if I could survive 4, much less 7, years of being scorned or ignored or barely tolerated. I never expected my stepkids to see me as a parent exactly. The best I could hope for, I thought, would be if they saw me as something like an aunt. However, when things did not improve very much after 2 or 3 years, I started to withdraw more and more. And I started giving up trying to forge much of a relationship with them, particularly when the 2 youngest stopped coming over on their designated custody weekends. And I also knew that the situation with the kids really hurt Greg. And then, when the youngest was about to start her senior year of high school, she moved out of state with her mother, and around the same time, we were offered the opportunity to live and work in Germany for a year. Since we had no real obligations left here, we decided to accept the opportunity. Being away from the situation allowed me time and space to think about it. For one thing, I actually started to miss the kids. I don't know how, but I did. But more importantly, I started to really think about what it must have been like for them to have to deal with a new step-parent. How uncomfortable and weird that must have been for them. Beyond discomfort, I thought about the guilt and confusion caused by having this new person foisted upon them. And when I thought about it from that perspective, I understood their behavior towards me to be about their own pain, and did not take it quite so personally after that. I think our being away from the kids that year also made some of them miss us and appreciate us perhaps a little more. And as they have grown into adults and become parents and step-parents themselves, they have a deeper understanding about the complexities of family relationships. This year, Greg and I will celebrate our 10th anniversary. A few years into our marriage, I didn't know if he would make it. And I felt at the time that I had perhaps been a little unlucky in falling in love with someone with 5 kids. But today, I truly feel incredibly lucky to have such a rich family life. As adults, all of our 5 kids have lived with us at one time or another. Our oldest daughter and 7-year-old grandson live with us now. Last summer, all of the kids except for one joined us on a big family vacation. And I now enjoy a close relationship with one of our kids, and am developing closer relationships with 2 of the others. The other 2 I may never be very close to, but I have begun to try again.
Well, I heard something about lemons, so I'm dressed like a lemon. If anybody wants to give me a squeeze after the service, this is a story about our granddaughter. When Sophia was about 1.5, she loved to play chase and play peekaboo. She would bring us stories to read over and over, but she didn't talk much. We told ourselves that kids in bilingual households tend to talk later. She didn't come when we called her name. Debbie told our son, "You need to teach her to come when she's called. Babies need to come when we call their names." Deb didn't know that this is often the first sign of autism, not responding to your own name. By the time Sophia was 2, Debbie started to worry, but she didn't say the A word out loud. Debbie told herself she was wrong. When Sophia was 2.5, her mother and Debbie went together to a baby shower. 20 warm, friendly women and any number of children all crowded into one small apartment, laughing and talking. Debbie watched Sophia. Sophia gave no indication that she knew that anyone else was in the room. She did not look at anyone. She did not talk to anyone. She did not touch anyone, and Debbie knew it had to be the A word, autism. Sophia could not be diagnosed until she was 3. Those are the rules right now. They need to be changed. On her 3rd birthday, she was officially diagnosed with autism, which was tentatively described as mild. There is no such thing as mild autism. There is only heartbreaking autism. Mild autism is the ultimate oxymoron. Sophia started school that day, too, in the Public Preschool for Children with Disabilities, or PPCD, and we began the arduous process of finding therapy for her. Debbie wanted to howl at the moon. She wanted to go out in the streets and scream and scream. She was angry, so angry at the universe which was doing this to her beautiful girl and to her son, to all of us. She cursed and cried. She didn't know what to do. She wished she could believe in God so she would have something to blame. So what did Debbie do? She made a quilt. She made it happy and colorful and pink. It was an abstract design expressing her joy in being a grandmother to Sophia. Originally, she wanted to hang a dark sheer curtain over it as a symbol of Sophia being cut off by her condition. Debbie's friend very gently talked her out of that. She wasn't really ready to hear when a friend said, "Sophia will get better." Deb, you don't want to have to live with just darkness every day. You want to leave room for her to get better. Debbie tried to do the dark curtain anyway, but she couldn't make it work. She tried several times. She couldn't make it look like what was in her head. This gave her time, and she realized that her friend was right. And Sophia has gotten better. At school, they taught her to follow simple directions, to stay in her chair and to work at a table. We found good therapy, too. One of the first things she learned was to high five and social interaction. It's great. She is learning to talk word by difficult word. We shared with all of you when she learned to say Grandma and Grandpa. She still needs a bit of help, but she says hi Grandma when she sees Debbie and hi Grandpa when she sees me. She can say bye-bye too and wave. She is learning to imitate. If you watch babies closely, they are imitating what they see and hear all the time. That is how they learn. Our autistic kids can't do that on their own. Sophia is even learning to play. She likes things that have cause and effect. Turn the knob and the jack jumps out of the box. She can turn on the TV at home and operate the DVD player. She has a computer keyboard that will work Mom's computer so she can make letters come and go. She has learned to understand most of what we tell her. Wait, we say. Jacket, what do you want? Tell me. Sometimes I think she knows that we already know what she wants, and why should she have to hunt in her little brain for the word? It takes effort, a lot of effort. She tugs on the freezer door and gives Debbie a speaking look, and they both know she wants ice cream. We push a little bit and praise a lot and hand out the ice cream whenever she asks for it. Debbie will always be angry that autism has happened to Sophia and to her parents and to us. There is so much to be angry about. Not just that this has happened. Angry that nobody knows what causes this. Angry that therapy costs so much. Angry that there is so little help for families who have autistic children. But it's not eating us alive anymore. Time has a way of letting you see things more clearly. It has a way of teaching you to accept what is instead of what you thought it would be. Some of the plans and dreams that we have had to go, but not all. Pushing Sophia on the swing and listening to her giggle, watching her as she figures out how to go tummy first on the swing, then wind it up and let it go so it whirls her around. Her cousin did the same thing when she was 4. Every child deserves for the adults who love them for who they are. We can't mold kids into our own ideas of who they should be. We can only take a marvelous journey of discovery. We get to watch as the child discovers who she is and what she can do. With Sophia, we will see this journey in slow motion. It will take her longer, and the steps will be smaller. We have no idea how far she can go. And as we rise in body or spirit to join in singing of our closing hymn, number 128, for all that is our life.